Hello, my name is Matthias, and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 29, which is the first blank game week of the season, which means that our team is going to be a bit hampered by that fact, because there are a couple of players that we would want to have that we can't have, because we can have at most 4 players out that don't play in Game Week 29, because we want to have 11 players starting for Game Week 29. So that makes it a bit difficult to wildcard this game week, in my opinion at least. I would probably save it for Game Week 30, unless you're like super struggling, if you really need your free hit later on in the season, or if you've used your free hit and wildcard is the only way out, then sure, you can wildcard. But other than that, I would probably try to wait for Game Week 31 ideally, or Game Week 30 if you're like me and you have your assistant manager chip left to play in Game Weeks 33 through 31, or 31 through 33 actually. But anyways, we're going to try to make an attempt, as we always do, on making a weekly wildcard draft, which is basically just a wildcard draft for you guys if you are looking to wildcard this game week, or if you just want to know which players are the most important players to have currently in FPL, which is the goal of this whole entire video series. Even if you are not wildcarding, I think this will be very helpful for you, as I will be presenting the team in the style of an NBA or NFL type of draft, where the number one player, the number one pick as it were, is going to be the player that I think is the most important to have in FPL currently. And then the 15th player that I'm presenting to you is the last player that made the squad, who was barely making the squad basically, who's not really as important to have in FPL currently. So let's just start with number 1, and that is once again Mohamed Salah. I know some people have been looking to sell him potentially. I think that would be a mistake. I think still any single game week where he is playing and no one else has a double game week, I think Salah is the best captaincy option. So yeah, I think you should just keep him. I think he is a season keeper. He is going to try to chase every single record. Yes, Liverpool might win the league, but that's still quite a few game weeks away until they get it mathematically secured as well. That's still going to be like game week 34, 35, probably at the earliest anyways, or 33 at least. So you can still wait and see with Salah. I wouldn't sell him for now, especially for that game week 30 fixture against Everton. I still think he's going to be the best captaincy choice. Same at game week 31 as well. I think I would just go with Salah captain, and then we have game week 32 and 33, which are double game weeks where you would go with a double game week player instead, most likely, or yeah, that would be ideal. So from game week 32 onwards, maybe you could look to sell him, but I don't think so still. I think he's just that good. He is on course for 400 points this season, which is unheard of. He's already broken his own record of 303 points. He has the most points FPL all time for a single season, beating his own record, of course. And when it comes to goals and assists, he's going to try to get as many as he can for the end of the season, and he just keeps playing 90 minutes all the time. I don't think he's going to be rested, even though they are playing in the Champions League, but they're also knocked out of both, or they are going to play in the League Cup final, but they are knocked out in the FA Cup. So they don't really have to worry about that either. So I think Salah's just going to play quite a lot, and I would not be unhappy with having him for the rest of the season, even though they do get tougher fixtures from like game week 35 onwards. But up until that point, I think Salah is just essential to have, and that's why he's number 1 in the team still. But that might change a bit from next week onwards, because at number 2 we have Isak, who also blanks this game week, but Isak is going to be really, really, really important to have, especially for game week 30. I think it would be a mistake to sell him for this one game week and then bring him back, because you most likely have a lot of money invested in him, like me. I would lose 0.4 if I sell him now and bring him back in game week 30. So he's also someone that I would like to keep for this game week, even on the wildcard, and you can do as many changes as possible. I still think Isak is just important to have, because yeah, game week 30 against Brentford, game week 31 against Leicester away, and then game week 32 at home to Man United and Crystal Palace in a double game week. He's just too important to give up, in my opinion, and give up value for. So yeah, Isak from game week 30 onwards is most likely going to be the number 1 pick, I think, potentially. So he's number 2 for like by far, in my opinion. So currently, because I think there's like quite a few. Like, it's pretty difficult to choose a team now in game week 29 where we have the blank game week to think about. But I think Salah and Isak are like the main 2 players to have from game week 30 and beyond that. So yeah, Isak comes in at number 2 behind Salah. Number 3, we have Justin Kluivert, who just keeps playing really well. Evanilson is back, and Kluivert is still providing the goods, getting points every single game, it seems like. He's still on penalties, still getting 70+ minutes, as he always is. I think he's just a really good player, and Bournemouth do have really good fixtures still. And they are also potentially going to double in game week 33 if they do go through in the FA Cup against Man City, which I think they can do at home to Man City. Wouldn't put it past them, but at the same time, Bournemouth are also sort of losing form, so I would sort of get why you would try to drop your Bournemouth players, but I think Kluivert for now is really, really good value. And I think there's another Bournemouth player that is really, really good value as well, offensively, that I'll get to in this draft as well. But yeah, Kluivert, penalties, playing all the time for a pretty good team with really good fixtures, and a chance to double game 33. All those things taken into account, I think he is a pretty important player to have. Also for a really cheap price. He's really not expensive at all, and he has had his breakthrough season this year, and he's looking probably better than ever the last like 4, 5, 6 game weeks. He's been really good still. So yeah, Kluivert comes in at number 3 for that reason. Number 4, we have Daniel Muñoz. That's the third and final outfield player that is blanking in Game Week 29. But again, he has really good fixtures. He has a confirmed double game week against Man City and Newcastle, which is not the best double, but it is a double after all. And it is also Crystal Palace, who are one of the best informed teams currently. So Southampton away, Brighton at home. The double game week as well could also get a double game week in 33 on top of that. If they go through in the cup and beat Fulham, they could still get that double game week 33 and get that double, which would be amazing. So yeah, Muñoz I think is also like a really easy pick there. He's been really good both defensively and attacking wise. Had another big chance this past game week. Sadly, he missed it for all of us that have him, but he just proves time and time again that he is such an attacking threat for his position. And also with the potential to get clean sheets for a really good informed team in Crystal Palace. So yeah, Muñoz, pretty easy pick as well. Muñoz, Salah, Isak, I think that's like the holy triangle in terms of players that you want from those 3 teams. But of course, Mateta is also in there. But yeah, we have some strikers that we really need to have for Game Week 29. So Muñoz is the preferred Crystal Palace asset currently. And we have another one as well, actually, that we'll get to eventually as well. You probably can guess already, since I already have 3 outfield players that are blanking. But yeah, moving on to number 5, we have Evanilson, who is also kind of new. He scored a goal this last game week. He's looking pretty good up front. Played 70 minutes, I think, last time around. Back into fitness, back as the number 9 for Bournemouth in really good form. So I think he can really kick on and be a really good player. He's also really cheap, which is the main reason why we have him, because there is another striker that I would really like to have in the team, but I just couldn't afford him in this team, basically. And that's why Evanilson comes in to be a really cheap player for a really good team with really good fixtures, playing as the number 9. He's also been on penalties previously. I think if Kluivert is off the pitch, maybe he takes penalties. I'm not quite sure about that, but he has been taking penalties previously in his career, so he could get that as well if Kluivert's not there to play. But yeah, Bournemouth really like their fixtures, really like their players in terms of Kluivert and Evanilson. And yeah, he comes in at number 5 for that reason. Could also get a double game week in 33, just like Kluivert can if they go through in the cup. So yeah, we'll see what happens there with Bournemouth. Let's move on to number 6, which is going to be Morgan Gibbs-White, which is kind of telling in terms of midfielders. I don't think there's that many good midfielders, really. And I think Gibbs-White is probably one of the best ones. As you can see, he's my 3rd choice in midfield currently. When it comes to Game Week 29, especially with Ipswich, really good fixture, and he is going to provide cover for the striker that is missing from Nottingham Forest, if you couldn't tell already. But yeah, I think Nottingham Forest have decent fixtures for the end of the season, even that Aston Villa fixture, which is red. That's mostly down to being a tough team to not concede against, but I think they could easily score against Aston Villa, who have been pretty bad defensively, especially at times this season in the Premier League. So yeah, I think good fixtures, potential for double game weeks, both in 34 and in 36, or in 33 and in 36, I should say, with then blanks in 34 and 37, if that's the case. But yeah, I think it's good fixtures. He's been really, really good as well. He's been super consistent and getting a lot of points the last like 10 game weeks. He's not really that far behind Chris Wood, who is the elephant in the room here. So I think Gibbs-White is just a really good option. He's integral to everything that Nottingham Forest do. He's a really good player, and there's also just such a lack of midfield options in general. So I think he's a really good value pick, and that's why he comes in at number 6. Number 7, we have another Nottingham Forest player, and it's another sort of lesser talked about defender, because people are looking at Ola Aina, they're looking at Milenkovic, probably Murillo as well, ahead of Nico Williams, but there's really no reason to, because if you look back the last like 10-12 game weeks, Nico Williams has actually had the most points, and he's actually played every single game since then as well. So he seems entirely nailed in the team. He's super attacking as well, and he keeps getting the same clean sheet points as everyone else as well. So for the cheaper price of 4.4, which is absolutely nothing, I think Nico Williams is just the best defender from Nottingham Forest currently. Milenkovic 4.4 more could be good as well, but I think Nico Williams has just proven he can score goals. He can get up on into the final end of the pitch, like the final third of the pitch. So I think he's just the best Nottingham Forest defender, and I quite like Nottingham Forest, especially for blank game week 29, but also potentially for the doubles that they could get if they go through in the FA Cup. So yeah, Nick Williams comes in at number 7 for that reason. Number 8, we have Jared Bowen still. It's dropped down a little bit since last time because they did have a bit of a disappointing game against Newcastle. West Ham didn't really look the best offensively in that game. But again, just the lack of midfield options. I think Bowen has decent chances of scoring in both Game Week 29 and Game Week 30, even at home to Bournemouth, who have conceded 1 or 2 goals every single game so far this season, or not so far this season, but like the last few game weeks. Bowen is still a really good asset to have, and he's looking pretty vital for West Ham. He could also be on penalties. It's either him or Ward-Prowse if Paqueta doesn't play. So for all those reasons, he is a pretty good player to have as well. So yeah, I quite like Bowen at number 8, especially with the lack of other midfield options currently available. So Bowen, a little less enthused about him now, especially with those pretty good fixtures, or at least the Leicester fixture 2 game weeks ago gone. But he still has decent fixtures. He has Southampton in the game week after Liverpool as well, that you can see there in, game week 30 or 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. In game week 33, he has Southampton, I think, at home. So, and he could also double in that game week, which is also really important. West Ham could actually have 2 doubles, I think, because I think they do face Nottingham Forest in game week 37. So that could also be moved to game week 36 potentially. But especially game week 33, if they could really, like if Brighton go through in the FA Cup, West Ham could have a double game week there as well. So, yeah, with all that in mind, they could have Brighton and Southampton game week 33, which is the real selling point when it comes to Bowen, potentially. But even if they don't get the double game week, they would still have Southampton, and Bowen would still be a good pick because he can score against Everton, Wolves, Bournemouth, even against Liverpool, potentially, in a really tough schedule for Liverpool there. He could score in that game week as well. So, yeah, quite like Bowen. He is just a really safe player to have. You know he's going to play 90 minutes all the time for West Ham, regardless of what West Ham are doing. Even in the seasons where they were playing all the matches in the Europa League and the Conference League and stuff, Bowen has always played 90 minutes in the league, and that's what he's going to continue to do. And that's why we really like Bowen as well, with especially the double game week potential on top of everything else as a player. So he comes in at number 8. Number 9, we have Josko Gvardiol from Manchester City, the first City player in this team, actually, which we're going to talk about pretty soon as well, why we have him first and not second. But yeah, I quite liked City defensively. They looked pretty good and solid defensively last time against Nottingham Forest. Just conceded an unlucky goal right at the end of the game. And Gvardiol, as we've seen previously as well this season, he can really go forward and get points in terms of goals, especially, and sometimes assists as well. So yeah, just quite like Gvardiol. He's a bit expensive, obviously, but I think Man City, also with the chance of having double in Game Week 33 and double in Game Week 36 as well, I think it's just important to have a couple City players and be ready for that. So Gvardiol, I think he's like the safest City option, especially for that price that he is. That's why I quite like him. Like he's not he is pretty expensive for a defender, but he's not like super expensive in the large scheme of things. Like he's not too difficult to bring into your team. He's only like 0.9 or whatever more than most defenders that you would consider. So yeah, Gvardiol, pretty decent player to have in general, especially with the City fixtures. They have really good fixtures in Game Week 29 and Game Week 30 especially. So Gvardiol comes in at number 9 for that reason. Number 10, we have Haaland. He is still in the team. That's why Chris Wood is not in the team. But I did really consider going with Chris Wood rather than Haaland because I think there's not that much between them, especially for Game Week 29 and Game Week 30. Like I mentioned, I do prefer Salah as a captaincy choice over Haaland anyway. Even though he does play Leicester, I think I would never back against Salah at this point of the season. So yeah, there are plenty of reasons to drop Haaland, but I think for Game Week 29 especially, I think you just want to hold on to him because I think he is the best captaincy choice, especially when we don't have the likes of Bruno Fernandes, for example, in this team because he's not a long-term good pick. I think it's important to just have Haaland, but you could go with Wood instead and save the money, have extra money in the bank, and potentially get Bukayo Saka, for example, if he's back for Game Week 30. Once Arsenal are through, or once he's back from injury, basically. You could do that as well and go with Wood instead. I would not be against that at all, but I think he is just the best captaincy option for Game Week 29, the safest player to have for Game Week 29. So even though I'm most likely going to drop him out of the team for the Game Week 30 draft, I think it just makes it barely in this team because, yeah, he could be like a really important player to have for the rest of the season, but there are more and more people like having some doubts about having Haaland because he is so expensive. That's the main part with him. He's 14.7 million, which is quite a lot. Even though he was 15 million at the start of the season, he's still super expensive, especially when Salah and other double game week players are going to be better than Haaland as captaincy choices. Maybe Game Week 29 and Game Week 33 are a different story, because he is playing, he's like the best asset at in Game Week 29 because Salah isn't playing, and also Game Week 33 he's doubling and Salah isn't doubling, so maybe he's the best asset in those two game weeks. But I think there are alternatives, which is a tough word to say for me, I guess, for Haaland. So I don't think he's essential at all, but I still would probably lean towards having him still if I was wildcarding this game week, and I'm still looking to potentially bring him in myself with free transfers as well. So yeah, Haaland comes in at number 10. Number 11, we have Ryan Ait-Nouri, just because of the good fixtures for Wolverhampton, as you can see there. Southampton away, West Ham at home, Ipswich away, Spurs at home. Beyond that as well, really good fixtures. Not the best when it comes to double game weeks and stuff, but Ait-Nouri, we all know the story with him. Super attacking, can get clean sheet points potentially with Wolves with those easy fixtures. So he's just a really nice and safe option in defense for like not the highest price either. So yeah, quite like Ait-Nouri at number 11. Not super enthused about him. I could be swayed to pick someone else in his place, but the good fixtures are just really, really enticing, especially that Southampton fixture in Game Week 29. And we're going to need as many good players as we can get. So yeah, Ait-Nouri comes in at number 11. Number 12, we have Henderson. I almost said Jordan Henderson, but that's not the right one. It's Dean Henderson for Crystal Palace. I did say I would have another Palace player, and he's the one in goal, because yeah, they are not playing in Game Week 29, but we can use our backup goalkeeper for that game week. And then after that, Southampton, which is away, which is really nice. Bournemouth or Brighton, I should say, at home, which is also really nice. And then the double game week, even though it's tough fixtures, he still has decent points potential there, Henderson. So yeah, quite like the double, potentially also the double in Game Week 33 if they go through in the cup on top of that. So yeah, I think Henderson is the best goalkeeper to have currently, since we have a backup that can play for him in Game Week 29, who is a suitable replacement in that game week. So yeah, Henderson comes in at number 12 for that reason. Number 13, we have Dean Huijsen, barely making it in the defense. I almost had Ollie Skarls from last week still in the team, but I figured Bournemouth just have better fixtures. He's still really cheap, Huijsen. He has that goal threat, has those fixtures like I mentioned with Bournemouth, the form that Bournemouth have been in. Like, they haven't been the best defensively. That's the only like major drawback, I think. I don't really trust Bournemouth's defense currently for some reason. Like, they have been struggling a bit lately. But yeah, decent goal threat, really good fixtures, really cheap price as well. So he's just a really nice option to have as another asset, especially if he's doubling in Game Week 33, which is potentially looking to happen if they beat City in the cup. Huijsen would be a really nice option, especially if that happens. But yeah, for now we have him in. Could be moved out, obviously. There's a reason why he's number 13. Like, it's not essential to have, but I think it's just really good value and could provide the goods at some point this season for his really cheap price. So he comes in at number 13. Number 14, we have a bit of an interesting player, Marshall Munetsi. Not that many people have even heard of him because he's really new. He's only played 4 matches for Wolverhampton, but he's like, I think he's averaging like around like 0.4, 0.5-ish expected goals per game. Like, he's playing super offensively in midfield for Wolves. He's only 5.0. And Wolves have those really, really nice enticing fixtures. So looking at the team, like, I could go with someone like Elanga. He is more like safe, but at the same time, I quite like the upside, especially with Southampton coming up now. He is a bit of an injury doubt because he was subbed off at the half last time around, but I think he's going to be fine for next game week. So yeah, I just quite like the punt. Like, he's 5.0 and is playing like super attackingly in midfield for Wolves. Finally, we have a midfielder from Wolves that is looking pretty good in FPL. And I think I would just jump on it as like a nice differential player to have now, especially for Game Week 29. I think he's an interesting player if he is fit to play. So still got to keep that in mind. Still got to make sure that we have him fully healthy and ready to play this next game week. Maybe we'll get some press conference news that he's not going to be ready to play. Will just be an easy swap to Elanga because we have that final Nottingham Forest spot open here. But yeah, for that reason, I have him at number 14. He is expendable, especially if he's not playing in Game Week 29. He would obviously not be in the squad, but yeah, really good potential, I think, especially for the price and the fixtures that he has. So yeah, I figured just should go with the Zimbabwean midfielder, which is also fun to say. So yeah, I think he has decent potential, and especially with those fixtures, yeah, just quite like the punt there. So he comes in at number 14. And number 15, we have Areola. We've basically had like the starting goalkeeper from West Ham as the backup the whole season, and there's really no reason not to do that now, especially with how good West Ham are looking. And Areola as well, for that matter. He had a really nice save against Newcastle. that avoided an own goal from Max Kilman. And West Ham look a bit more defensively solid. I think that's been like one of the main things for Graham Potter coming into West Ham. He just wanted to solidify that defense. And with the new 3 or 5 at the back formation that West Ham have now, it looks a bit more solid defensively. So I think Areola is decent value. Obviously has a couple tough fixtures there, but he could also get the double in game week 34, which would be really enticing. So yeah, just quite like him for the price. 4.2, West Ham goalkeeper, pretty safe, but again, not super important. He is just a backup goalkeeper anyway to play in game week 29. Most likely going to concede against Everton, as West Ham usually do. But yeah, just a nice option to have as your backup goalkeeper. So that's all 15 players in the squad. We have 4 new players with green names in Dean Housen, Marshall Munetsi, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Evanilson. And that means we have 4 players that have dropped out since last time, including the number 3 pick from last game week. So let's take a look at the players that have dropped out since the last draft at March, which I did at March 5th, which is tough to say, I guess. First and foremost, Marmoush had I was pretty high on him going into last game week, and then he was just benched. I'm not too confident in Marmoush going forward, I guess, but because he didn't play that game. He's still a decent pick, and I still think he would be more likely to start games than not. But yeah, just with the minutes risk on top of everything else, I just can't really go for him, especially since we have so many other good striker options in Evanilson and Chris Wood, especially on top of Haaland. So yeah, I think I would rather go without City attackers than go with Marmoush at this point. So yeah, he's dropped out for that reason pretty much. Number 11 was Pedro Neto, who did his job, got a decent haul in game week 27, didn't really do much in game week 28, and now his good fixtures and are pretty much over, and Nicholas Jackson's coming back at some point as well for Chelsea, so his value is just not the same anymore with those 2 fixtures at home to Southampton and Leicester gone out the window now. So yeah, he drops out since last time. Elanga, like I mentioned, he is a really nice pick to have rather than Munetsi if Munetsi is not fit to play in game week 29. But again, I do prefer Gibbs-White. He has been a more consistent threat in midfield. I think you might as well just pay the extra million to get like a more safe and sound attacker. He's been much better than Elanga for the last 10 game weeks. So yeah, I just prefer those guys over Elanga, but he's really close to making it because he's really cheap and he's still playing at least 70 minutes per game for Nottingham Forest, so he's still a decent player to have. And then finally, Ollie Scarles was a really late subtraction to the team. I had Dean Housen come in pretty late because I had the extra money available. And that was the main reason Scarles was in last time around, because he was 4.0. He's really cheap. Both him and Cresswell are decent options at that price, assuming they still continue to play. And I think Scarles is just going to be the starting left back now for West Ham going forward, and left wing back as well. He was pretty offensive against Newcastle compared to the previous games. It has seemed like he's been more defensively minded, and Wan-Bissaka has been more offensively minded, but Scarles actually had some really good positions that game, and if Kudus could learn to pass out to him, that would be really, really nice, because he would be a really good option. But yeah, he just didn't make it because I have a lot of defenders. I quite like the defenders currently in FPL. Don't really like the midfielders that much, but defenders, there are a lot of people to choose from. We have another couple of players that we could choose as well. Kukurea is another that we could mention. We have another on the cusp that I'm going to talk about later now as well. So yeah, quite a few defenders that I like. So Scarles misses out, but he is still a really good pick for 4.0, who I think is going to play for the end of the season for West Ham with those decent fixtures that I mentioned for Bowen, especially with potentially double game week 33. Scarles is a really nice differential, or like a nice enabler to have in defense. But yeah, there are just a couple of players that I prefer over him in defense, so he's dropped out since last time as well. So those are the 4 players that have dropped out since last time. Then we have 3 players that were close to making the squad but didn't for one reason or another. So let's go to those 3 players as well. First and foremost, Chris Wood, gotta mention him. He is probably going to be higher than 100% in terms of expected ownership this upcoming game week. He's really affordable still, even though he is a bit too expensive for this team, because I couldn't afford him over Evanilson. But that's basically the only reason he's not there. And like I said, if you're not really sold on Haaland, if you're not going to captain him, if you do have as much faith in Salah as I do in the single game weeks, and you want to prefer to captain Salah over Haaland those game weeks, and you don't mind captaining someone else in game week 29 and game week 33, you could easily go for Chris Wood, because he's just been so consistent this whole season. Nottingham Forest just keeps winning. They beat Man City now 1-0. And even though Wood didn't score, we know that usually when they win 1-0, he's going to be the one player to score and get those bonus points as well. So Wood is a really, really nice option. If I had the money available here in this team, I would bring him in, but I just think this is the best that I can go with currently with Haaland. But yeah, definitely a case to be made to go with Wood over Haaland, or if you have the money, go with Wood over Evanilson. But I do quite like Evanilson for that price as well. So I would probably like to have Isak, Evanilson, and Wood as the triple threat up front. But yeah, Haaland is just calling out to me because of the 2 next game weeks especially, and especially game week 29 where you want to captain him most likely. With the lack of other captaincy options this week. So yeah, Wood is not part of the team. And then Mitoma as well could get a double game week in game week 33. Just not entirely sold on Brighton. I just haven't really been able to trust Brighton this whole season. Mitoma is still a fine pick to have, but I do prefer the midfielders that I currently have, especially for the price of 6.5. If I had enough money available, maybe I would go with Mitoma over Munetsi, but yeah, I just don't think like I'm sold enough to have him. But he's still a fine option. He plays 90 minutes most games, even though he had that little spell of 2 games in a row where he didn't start not too long ago. But I still think he's going to be the like one of the most trusted Brighton players who's going to play most likely each and every game. So he is a decent option, but you could go without him as well, which is what I have done in this draft. And then finally we have Milos Kerkez, who is also a nice alternative to Dean Howson. And many would point to Kerkez because he's had assists in the last 2 games to be the better pick out of him and Howson, but it's just down to the price basically. Howson is like 0.7 less in terms of price. And I think there's not really too much between them either. Like Kerkez is more offensively minded, obviously, but Howson has a much better set piece threat in terms of scoring goals, and he also has better baseline bonus on top of that as well. So he's more likely to get bonus points if they get a clean sheet and they don't get attacking returns. So Kerkez is an interesting player, but I do think I prefer Howson just a little bit because of the price still. So yeah, that's why I have Howson ahead of Kerkez in this pecking order basically. So that is it for the weekly wildcard draft for this game week. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said at the start of the video, don't think game week 29 is the best game week to wildcard, but if you are wildcarding for some reason, if you really need the players for this game week in particular, and you don't want to use your free hits to do it, you don't really like your team like long term in terms of using a free hit in 29, then yeah, sure, go for it. But I would most likely try to keep it for game week 30 or game week 31, especially if you haven't, or yeah, if you have used your assistant manager already, you can wait for game week 31 to do your changes, because we're going to get so much more information as well before game week 31 or after game week 30, especially because we do get the, or before game week 30 we get the results from the FA Cup the next round, so we know which teams are potentially blanking, but we also still have to wait for the official news and confirmation from FPL or Premier League for that matter, where those teams are going to play and which game weeks will be double game weeks and which game weeks will be blank game weeks. We still don't really know that. So with that in mind, I would prefer to just wait with the wildcard and wildcard a bit later than game week 29 personally. But yeah, like I said, if you are in a bind and you need players for this game week, I could totally see why you would wildcard, and then this would be the team that I would suggest for you if you are doing that. So yeah, with all that in mind, thank you for watching as always. Leave a comment if there's any comments you have about the video, about the channel, about me or anything. All things praise as well as criticism is welcome here in this channel. Also like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers, which would be amazing. Also going to try to do a live stream because I haven't done that yet. Potentially for 1,000 subscribers, I would probably do a live stream after that and try to get into the live stream game because I want to do that for next season especially. So yeah, hope you subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, thank you for watching as always. See you next time. Bye bye.